Thank you very much. Glad to be here. When they asked us to sponsor this this position and speak here, no one told me I'd follow Lorelei. I'd rather follow lunch, but lunch wasn't an option in this summit. But good morning. My name is Randy Hoyle. I'm Senior Vice President and Chief Development Officer for Terrigen. Proud to be here. Been operating here in Kern County for a little over 11 years. And I'm here to give you a little bit of an update on where we're at from a wind perspective, solar, and did a little bit of editing and decided to give some detail on energy storage and where we're heading there. You're stuck with me for 45 minutes. The first 15 minutes will be sort of an industry update. And then the last 30 minutes, we will be providing actually a panel that will be providing some interesting and exciting innovative technologies. Trying to get this. There we go. You have to sit through a mini commercial, but I think this commercial is worth it. It's a little bit of a look towards the past and also a look towards the future. You know, Terrigen does invest in renewable technologies and renewable enabling technologies such as energy storage. We are the most successful wind development company in California's history. And that has all been done here in Kern County. 15 projects, over 2,000 megawatts, $4 billion of investment over the last 10 years. We are currently in the process of repowering 3 wind projects where we are removing 390 old wind turbines and replacing them with 40 state-of-the-art turbines. That is an evolution of the industry, and these turbines will be operating for the foreseeable future. It's just a matter of repowering, and it's just a matter of utilizing the existing transmission grid to continue delivering clean, renewable power to Californians. We've also expanded past Kern County, and we're also repowering in the next year 2 projects in Palm Springs. So if you ever drive through the 10, we will be removing about 550 turbines and replacing them with about 28 turbines. How about the future plans for Kern? First of all, I'll say this. There's a lot of people in the renewable industry sitting along here, 8-Minute, First Solar, Clearway, S-Power, et cetera, and we're all committed to one thing, and that is increasing the amount of investment in Kern County. Currently, our large project that we're working on are 2 projects that are adjacent to each other. One is on Edwards Air Force Base, which will be able, once it's fully built out, to deliver 650 megawatts of solar power and up to 1,000 megawatt hours of energy storage. Adjacent to that, we also have a project that's called Sanborn, 250 megawatts and another 1,000 megawatt hours of energy storage for a total of 900 megawatts and 2 gigawatt hours of energy storage. We plan that investment to start breaking ground in end of 2020, and we will be complete with the construction sometime in 2022. In addition to that, even though Terrigen likes to be below the radar, which is very helpful when you operate next to an Air Force base or sustainability complex. But our first energy storage project will go online in February. It's a $40 million investment adjacent to an existing wind energy project. My man, Clint Eastwood. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly a little bit here on federal public policy. But a consistent public policy is what drives all renewable or energy development and really all economic development. On the federal side, the good. Permitting on federal lands is easier than ever. There are some counties here in California where I would rather go through a federal process than a process with the city, with the county, or with any other authority having jurisdiction. The bad is tax credits will be expiring here for federal tax credits, whether it's the ITC, investment tax credit, related to solar, or the federal production tax credit, Section 45 credits as it relates to wind. Those are expiring soon. The impacts to wind are much more, are much harsher than solar, but that's just a reality of where we're at. The ugly. You could go a lot of places here, but really tariffs. Tariffs really hurt long-term investment in infrastructure projects. I'll give you an example. I negotiated a $600 million deal with a party. That was a fixed price contract to deliver a project when it was completed. All of a sudden, the turbine supplier and our constructor came up and said, well, guess what? We're off by about $67 million because of tariff impacts. That's very difficult to deal with. And that is something that I know everyone across the industry is dealing with, but tariffs are not good for our industry. It's not good for long-term planning. It doesn't provide certainty to the cost structure, and that's just a part of the ugly. California is mostly good. Why do we like investing in California in general? Well, we like investing in California because one of the most consistent renewable energy policies in the United States is California's commitment to reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. Back in 2007, 2008, we had a term for it. Are they really going to drive the car off the cliff? And guess what? Their commitment has paid off. And the price of renewables has gone down. Compliance costs have been largely reduced, at least in the renewable energy side of it. And that's the 100% carbon-free, electricity target in 2045 is I think, something that's easily achievable. Community choice aggregation is driving demand. There'll be more on that later. The ugly is really recurring wildfires is not something that's positive for California or the utility industry or renewable energy. Try getting a project insured these days in anything that represents a wildfire risk. You cannot have threats of bankruptcy going through every year. And this is, I'd hate to say it, a new normal. And there needs to be some strategy. There needs to be a long-term solution and a glide path to resolve it. You just cannot be having a threat to bankrupt utilities every year. I'm dealing with it with a utility that's not bankrupt. And we have to structure around this potential singularity. Even though the utility's not bankrupt, you have to structure around it, which costs money, takes time, and impacts future investment. I should have called this the great, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because the great is Kern County. Kern County and the Board of Supervisors have created an environment where capital placed at risk can be rewarded. You cannot say that in every jurisdiction. We just completed a $20 million acquisition of an operating project here in Kern County within the past month. At the board meeting when I was pitching it, we spent 2 minutes on it. We've already been there, done that. $1 that I request in front of my board to place at risk, the easiest dollar that I get is a dollar placed in Kern County. And I'm not overstating it. It is the absolute truth. And it's driven by a consistent policy that's set by the board, and the planning department is aligned with the board's goals. That alignment is, you don't see that. A lot of people, we want economic development, but do you really want economic development? And the secret is having an alignment, setting the goals, having a consistent public policy, and having alignment with your planning department, an experienced planning department. And I'll just mention the last thing is SCE's investment in the Tehachapi Renewable Transmission Project has really, really paid dividends beyond belief. It's an economic engine, primarily in East Kern. There would be no activity in East Kern. Yes, there's LADWP lines coming through there, but the level and the significant nature of the investment has been driven by that new transmission line. This part of the presentation is brought to you by AFLAC. The duck curve is where theoretical becomes reality. The duck curve is primarily caused by increasing solar penetration. There are two. This is sort of the nerdy part of it, but I'll just break it down really easily. How many of you are home at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and need power? Not very many. That is what happens with solar. Solar is there during the day, but when you come home at night, you turn on your lights, AC, what happens? The sun, I believe, goes down every day. And so it is those two impacts, is what do you do with power during the day? What do you do when solar comes on early in the morning? So you got to ramp down, you need flexible resources. What happens when you come home at night? The largest, I think in September, the largest 3-hour ramp, meaning when solar comes off and you got to meet load, is 15,000 megawatts. And the question is, what is that solution? And that solution will be energy storage in the near term. And Kern will lead, and Lorelei talked about this, and I think the industry colleagues that are sitting here, there's going to be a ton of energy storage that will be developed over the next 4 years. Let's talk a little bit about giving back. This is probably not something that you'd anticipate, that someone's invested $4 billion and continually invest here in Kern County, but we have several of our operational people. We have over 88 employees that live, work, and play in Kern County. Creating shareholder value and giving back to the community can coexist. We've contributed over $5.8 million over the last 10 years to different causes. One of the things that I did, the first thing I did is created a scholarship program. We have provided over $100,000 in scholarships to high school seniors across seven high schools. That's everywhere from Bakersfield to Tehachapi to Mojave, down to Palmdale and Lancaster. We also purchased 50 or contributed 50 Mojave street solar lights. We have a Kern County Wind Response Energy Vehicle. That's a fancy name for a fire truck. EDF, TerraGen, and NextEra split it 3 ways: $350,000, $375,000, and $125,000 apiece. And that fire truck has certain capabilities that can be utilized for lithium-ion batteries as well. So it's just not we may have to rename it, quite frankly. Edwards Air Force Base, Spaceship One replica, Mojave Air and Spaceport. By the way, the Edwards Air Force Base Flight Test Museum, we just sponsored an SR-71 Blackbird. And it'll be a $250,000 commitment that will be contributed to the Flight Test Museum, and it's a pretty badass plane. It's pretty cool. Relay for Life, Mojave Air and Spaceport. A lot of people didn't think wind and airplanes would be compatible, and with a lot of foresight from the leadership over at Mojave Air and Spaceport, it started a relationship, a very, very good relationship. Matter of fact, right now we have turbines sitting off the rail yard at the Mojave Air and Spaceport. and it's a pretty good thing. The other meaningful values I'll just talk about a little bit. Unlike solar, wind does pay ad valorem or property taxes. I think Lorelei said 150 million. At least initially, in the first couple of years, it was about $30 million a year in property tax contributions that the projects that we developed contributed. We also paid over $250 million in California state taxes. And I just add one more thing real quick here. We built 117 miles of desert tortoise fencing and contributed $15 million for 1.5 tortoises. We knew where they were. As a matter of fact, one day we came out and the tortoise was hung up on a rail spur, and so we had to call someone to actually take them off of it. But anyway, there needs to be some reasonableness also somewhere here. A portion of that $15 million could have went to something here in Kern County instead of funding something to protect 1.5 tortoises where we knew where they were, and et cetera. I'll wrap it up here. This is where Edwards Air Force Base, our project is. We're only utilizing 2% of the land of Edwards Air Force Base for the project. We're excited to be working with the Air Force, and it's been a great partnership to date. I will leave you with just one thing. And this is not because I'm in Kern. I tell everyone this. I tell everyone this in all of our projects that we develop in California. Kern County is a great place to do business.